I I feel guilty. I feel bad because I really reached a point uh, recently where I thought Democrats in Washington D.C. had sunk as low as they could possibly go. I actually came to a realization that they couldn't get any lower in their Trump derangement syndrome, with their seditious behavior, with their anti-American activities, and then this morning they went and proved me wrong and sank that much lower. The odious Mark Warner basically calling for a military coup against the elected president. We'll show you exactly what he said this morning coming up in just a second. We'll also show you the showdown between Ilhan Omar and Donald Trump. War of words, to say the least, about the corrupt Somali community in Minneapolis. And speaking of that corruption, we've got more details about the shit show that is Minneapolis corruption under the watch of Tim Walz, and show you exactly who's responsible and how bad it's gotten. All of that coming up, and maybe a little more. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Dropping a 4-letter word right there, right in the first minute. I apologize. Well, I'll get better. There it is. I'll get better. I apologize. Don't let that keep you from subscribing to our program, and don't keep that from putting your favorite comment down below. Do you prefer it when I just say the word, or would you rather hear the beep? I want your opinion. I'm not going to say you're going to win out on this, because we have certain standards here that I try to maintain. But I am interested if you enjoy the beep sound, or if you would rather me just let loose with my foul language. Let me know in the live chat right now or in the comments section afterwards. Maybe it will inform us whether we do sort of an after hours, Larry Unplugged version of the episode in the future. Let me know right down below. Thank you for that. There's a war happening right now, and no, it's not involving Venezuelan boats. It's not where you think. It's in your gut. A battle between good and bad bacteria, and it truly does determine your health and overall quality of life. Now, if you research kimchi, the Korean superfood, you're going to learn that they've used it for over 2,000 years there in Korea for its remarkable health benefits, because of its fermentation, because of the ingredients. There's a lot of reasons. It's a superfood. Kimchi One from Brightcore Nutrition is the fermented superfood your body needs to arm the good guys with the right weapons to defeat the bad actors once and for all. You get all the benefits of kimchi in tiny little capsules. All health starts in the gut, so putting the right fermented superfood in your gut improves every aspect of your life, your heart, your brain, even the quality of your skin and the growth of your hair. Containing over 900 strains of beneficial bacteria in each capsule, Kimchi One supports healthy digestion, fortifies your immune system, and helps detoxify your body. Kimchi has also been known to reduce risk of obesity, promote smaller waistlines, curbing your appetite, naturally boosting your metabolism. Kimchi One is all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, 100% made in the USA. Be like me. Be strong like ox. You can get an exclusive offer today by going to mybrightcore.com/Larry. Use code Larry for 25% off your entire order, or for an even better deal, do what my ex-wife did. Call them up at Brightcore and get up to 50% off your order and free shipping. And this is 100% true. And they said, my ex-wife, well, who referred you? And she said, well, my ex-husband did. But, despite our differences, I'm all in on Kimchi One. So give them a call. It's 888-462-4779. 888-462-4779. Save some money and save your gut health. That is 100% true. My ex-wife did that. It's hilarious. The Democrats have sunk to a new low now. Mark Warner, the odious senator from Virginia, who promised only to run for 2 terms, by the way, and then ended up, I believe, just announcing his candidacy for his 5th term as senator of Virginia. Yeah, that guy. He came out of Morning Joe this morning, and what he said is going to make your blood boil. Take it away, Mark.
It is 5:30. Live look at the Capitol as the Trump administration shifts responsibility for that September boat strike to Admiral Frank Bradley. Bradley will head to Capitol Hill tomorrow, where he is expected to brief top members of the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees about those attacks. Joining us now, one of the lawmakers who will meet with Admiral Bradley tomorrow, Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia. Senator, thank you for coming on the show.
We will get to this exchange in a quick second, but I need to jump in and interject about how deceitful, duplicitous, and obnoxiously slanted that intro was. I'm sorry, there's no shifting of blame going on here. This admiral, as I told you in the last program, is a graduate of the Naval Academy. Immediately in 1991, upon getting his commission, went right to Coronado, tried out for the SEAL team, made it, went through BUDS. He's now in charge of all special operations. He is a badass. He's not taking any crap. And now, the administration is shifting blame, like they're throwing this admiral under the bus. Now, here's what they're trying to do. They're trying to General Kelly this guy. They're trying to get this guy, the beast, the machine, the monster inside Washington, D.C., is trying to tap this guy on the shoulder. Listen, he's a flag officer, all right? He's a 4-star admiral. He makes a nice paycheck, relatively speaking, to the military. But compared to the kind of money that jackasses like this guy make in politics in Washington, D.C., everybody knows that these generals and admirals are just about a year or two away from retiring, and then they sit on boards of directors, okay? And what they do is these politicians get in their ear and they say, listen, I'll put in a good word for you. It'll be a nice paycheck. And listen, these are admirable people. They have honor. They respect and love their country, but they've also sacrificed decades and put their lives on the line. And yes, sometimes it's intoxicating to hear that little voice that says, listen, if you just play the game in Washington, you've given enough to this country. When you retire, you'll have all these cushy board of directors jobs. You'll finally make the cash that all of these losers like Mark Warner have made. You just got to play the political game a little bit. And then you'll have this nice cushy retirement. And haven't you done enough for this country? Isn't it about time that you got that paycheck too? That's what's happening here. They're trying to turn this admiral, and they're creating this narrative. Oh, they're now shifting blame. It's not shifting blame. The Washington Post erroneously said that Pete Hegseth picked up the phone in the middle of this airstrike and said, kill them all. I want them all dead. Shoot them down now. And that never happened. The truth of the story has come out. Hegseth, after meeting with attorneys and JAG officers and legal consultants, put forth the orders. Everyone signed off on them. And then at that point, the commanders in the military are in charge of executing the attack. And this admiral, who is, again, a badass and knows the rules of engagement, knows the legal orders and what is an illegal order, he did his job. So now when they say, well, he's shifting blame, no. The truth is now out about what happened and who was in charge and who made whatever orders that had to be made to do their duty. And it's contrary to the original fake report from the Washington Post. And so instead of saying, well, the Washington Post got the story wrong, and here's what really happened. No, instead, Mika says they're shifting blame and they're throwing this admiral under the bus, which is not what's happening at all. You may call it shifting blame, Mika. You know what it really is? It's called the chain of command. It's called how the military operates. And Pete Hegseth specifically put out a public statement saying that this admiral is the best of the best. He has full confidence in him. He did nothing wrong. Nobody did anything wrong. But they are so far out on a limb on this story that they've got to stick with what they originally suggested, which is that there was illegal orders, that there were war crimes, that we need Mark Kelly to sweep in and become the new president, or whatever the hell their new narrative is. And so now here's Mark Warner taking up that ball, and watch what he does. Watch how slimy and slippery this scumbag is.
What are some of the questions that you will want answers to from Admiral Bradley tomorrow?
I'm going to want to get answers on what did Pete Hegseth order? Why haven't we seen the whole unedited video? If there's nothing inappropriate here, you could have cleared this up without the admiral coming in. He's got a great reputation. I respect him. I want to get the truth, and I'm not sure we've had the truth from Hegseth yet. Remember, this is an administration that has treated the uniformed military with unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I think in many ways, the uniformed military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump. And I expect Bradley to adhere to that.
You son of a bitch. You absolute despicable son of a bitch. I hope you caught all of that. Let's break it down quickly here. By the way, while he's talking, is he like part serpent or something? What's with the bizarre darting tongue coming out of his mouth in the middle of a word? Did you see what I saw? It's very strange.
What did Pete Hegseth order? Why haven't we seen the whole unedited video? If there's nothing inappropriate here, you could have cleared this up without the admiral coming in. He's got a great reputation.
Well, no. But first of all, how many times do we see unedited videos of military strikes? Right? We see one quick shot, and on this thing, we've seen a quick shot, but how often does the military release all of their unedited full battle videos that they've got from drones or from aircraft executing? That's very rare to do. You could have answered the question and not had the admiral come in. Well, first of all, that's not true, because again, let's just be clear. Hegseth gives the order. Then the battle commanders actually carry out the orders. If there are questions, then yeah, you want to go to the source and talk to the admiral about it. Number one. Number two, these guys are just in it for a political. See, here's what's happening with Mark Warner. Number one, part of it is what I just said. They're trying to turn this admiral. They're trying to get in his ear, and they're trying to make him think that the Trump administration is throwing him under the bus, right? That's part of it. But here's the other part. Mark Kelly wants to have a political showdown with Pete Hegseth in a committee room in the Senate. That's what he wants. He wants the cameras. He wants the drama. All the Democrats do. The last thing they want is to have a scene where they have a four-star admiral in his Navy uniform with his real earned medals, thank you very much, on his chest. A man who was first on the ground in Afghanistan after 9/11. The last thing they want is to have that warrior sitting across from them and making them look like the sleazebags that they are. So that's why he's like, I don't know why we need the admiral here. We don't know. Pete Hegseth can answer all the questions. We want Pete. We don't want the admiral. They don't want anything to do with this guy unless they can flip him, unless they can sort of get in his ear. And I don't think they can, because this man is a stud. This man is a stud. And they are playing with the wrong characters here, if that's their game. But that's what they're trying to do.
I respect him. I want to get the truth, and I'm not sure we've had the truth from Hegseth yet.
I want to get the truth, and I'm not sure we've had the truth. Well, first of all the players involved in this so far, from Mark Kelly to the Seditious Six to Mika Brzezinski to the Washington Post and Natasha Bertrand and the CNN, and then to Pete Hegseth, one person has had the same consistent story throughout. That's Pete Hegseth. Throughout the entire thing. I'm not sure we've had the truth. Oh, you're not sure you've had the truth? Well, that's because you read the Washington Post, because they're the ones who got the story wrong. It even took the New York Times to publicly spank those bastards. I want to get the truth, and I'm not sure we've had the truth. Okay, well, if you're not sure you've had the truth, that means maybe you have had the truth. So when you say you want to get the truth, perhaps you've already gotten the truth. This is all bullshit. And they are so desperate now that at the end of this little word salad that would make Kamala Harris hungry for a second visit to the bar, he openly calls for the military to defy this administration and upend the civilian leadership of our military. Listen to his words.
Remember, this is an administration that has treated the uniformed military with unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump.
Oh, this administration has treated the military with unprecedented respect. The last administration fired, dishonorably discharged thousands of members of the uniformed military because they refused to get the shot for COVID. And they were dismissed, discharged from duty. Nothing disrespectful about that. What a pig. Yeah, the commander-in-chief and the secretary of war called all the flag officers for a meeting at Quantico so that they were all on the same page about what the new direction of the Pentagon was going to be. And it only takes a mealy-mouthed little pathetic crumb like Mark Warner to suggest that that is disrespectful of the military. Excuse me, which admiral or general resigned as a result of that disrespect? Could you give me the list? How about just the one name? Is there one name? There is not one name. If it was so disrespectful of those generals and admirals, why have they all kept their jobs? Where's Mika, by the way, challenging all of these bald-faced lies? Well, we know where Mika is.
This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I think...
Yeah, but do you know what the Defense Intelligence Agency did in the last administration? Do you know what the NSA did during the first Trump administration and their participation in the Russian collusion hoax? We've all seen the unredacted documents now. How dare you fire someone? You know what? Sometimes, Senator Warner, people who get fired deserve to be fired. This is all politics. And they're using not only the commanders in our military, they're using the personnel. Here's the thing. There were enlisted men. There were, junior officers who were involved in this mission, and they did a great job, and they did their job. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. And he's playing politics with them. He's playing politics with their lives. He's playing politics with their careers. This is why, before this new administration, because we had leaders like this, it's why we had empty ranks in our military. It's why recruitment was so low, why we couldn't keep people in the military because of this behavior. And then finally, the last words here.
I think in many ways, the uniformed military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump. And I expect
the military may save us from this administration. There's another word for that. The military may save us from this administration. Let me replace those words for a second. This administration is the executive branch of government whose leadership was elected by the American people through the Electoral College process. And, oh, by the way, he got the popular vote too just a year ago. So what he's saying is the military will save us from the man the people in America voted for to be our president. And how exactly does the military save us from the duly elected president? How do you expect them to do that, sir? Oh, he's going to leave that part unanswered. You don't hate these people enough. Quick reminder here, his pal Eric Swalwell over in the other chamber of Congress.
Remember, this is an administration that has treated the uniformed military with unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is an administration that's fired, uniformed generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I think in many ways, the uniformed military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump.
I'm heartened by what I learned from our members in the military, and they tell me at town halls or the ones who I've had longstanding friendships with, that we shouldn't count them out as a check on abuses of power. And of course, you have the congressional check from Article 1 of the Constitution. The judiciary is supposed to be independent. Not a lot of faith in either of those right now. But members of the military have told me, they're not going to follow illegal orders.
All right, so that's Swalwell. And so are you catching a theme here from these Democrats? Are you catching a theme from these despicable individuals? Yeah, don't count the military out from holding the administration accountable. Oh, sure, we have Article 1. We have the legislative branch and we have the judiciary. But Eric Swalwell has lost faith in the legislative branch of government, of which he participates as one of the 435 members of the House. And he's lost faith in the judiciary because the Supreme Court has deemed the rogue judges that are trying to stop the executive branch completely unconstitutional and out of line. So because he's lost faith in the constitutional process to have oversight over the executive branch, Eric Swalwell says, don't worry, folks, because the military will have our backs. I'm sorry. Can someone please, in the comments section, show me the part of the Constitution that empowers the military to hold the executive branch of government, duly elected by the American people, accountable? Can you explain to me how the military is supposed to supersede the legislative branch and the judicial branch and in some way hold the executive branch accountable? That's Eric Swalwell's Constitution. It doesn't exist, of course. It's just a fever dream of these lunatic Democrats who are basically calling for a coup. And if I'm overstating the case, if you think that I'm leaping to the wrong conclusion, please tell me exactly what they are saying here then. Because I think when you dabble in this sort of deal, perhaps you should be very precise with your language. But I've now got two of them. And thank you to Western Lensman for doing this mashup for us. Great account on X. I've got Warner here saying that the military will save us from the Trump administration. And I've got Swalwell saying that his sources in the military say, don't count us out from holding the administration accountable. And they're celebrating it. They're cheering it on. They're instigating it. They're calling for it. And then there's the poster child of the deep state under the Clinton and Obama regimes, Leon Panetta, yesterday.
There is no lawyer that I'm aware of who indicates that second strike is not a war crime. These were individuals in the water who were wounded. It is against the law to strike and kill those individuals. They did that. As far as I'm concerned, there is a war crime involved here, and it's for that reason that I think we need to hold people accountable. Secretary of Defense should be somebody who stands by the law, who stands by the requirements that you have to put in place if you're going to responsibly conduct aggressive action against anybody. That's the responsibility of the Secretary of Defense.
This guy was the CIA director, by the way, back when some really, really cool stuff happened, like U.S. citizens getting droned to death by the Obama administration. But that wasn't a war crime. He was a former CIA director. He also, by the way, put his name on that beautiful document that attested to the world that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. That's this guy. That's this guy now calling this a war crime. And by the way, everything he just said about the military strike against the Venezuelan narco terrorists is taken right from the now completely disreputed and debunked Washington Post story. And again, no one on MS Now is following up and saying, excuse me, former CIA Director Panetta, if I could just say, you just said that the second strike against survivors. Isn't it true that according to the command structure in the Pentagon, there wasn't a second strike on survivors? It was all a continuous strike with a second blow to the wreckage of the boat to ensure that the wreckage and whatever narcotics were in that boat were destroyed. If there were survivors amongst that wreckage, there was no way for them to not carry out their duty without having casualties. But that's kind of what happens in war. Isn't that the case? But of course, that question was never asked because MS Now is not in the business of news. Where the NBC people could not be happier right now to have that peacock off of the logo. Okay, so that's Leon Panetta, but there's more. They continue this narrative. And again, I started the program by saying that I thought that they couldn't sink any lower. But they don't have a way to defeat Donald Trump ever again. They'll never be able to. He can't run again. He's already beaten them. They threw everything they could at him, and he still won the election. So now what are they going to do? Well, they don't have the power to impeach him. So now they've got to up the level of hysteria to such a point where they actually have people openly discussing some sort of military commandeering of the White House, because it's the only way they think they can get Trump out of the White House. Until, of course, they win the elections next year. And that's what a lot of this is all about. They want chaos. They want a daily dose of chaos, and they want all of us at each other's throats. So the election comes along next year, and this was their playbook, by the way, in 2018, last time Trump was president. They created so much chaos, and they created so much anger and vitriol in this country that you had people even who supported Trump to just say, yeah, I like him, but God, I'm just fatigued by all of this. I'm just done. I just want us to, be friends again. I want us to be able to talk again in this country. So they ripped us apart, and they created all this chaos just so they can win and get into power. And then what did they do when they were in power? Impeachment, impeachment, investigation, impeachment, investigation, impeachment, investigation, impeachment. And that's what they want, because that's all they've got. They want us to hate each other. Don't give in to this. If you want to hate somebody, hate the people who are directing this. Hate the people who are instigating this, who are trying to make us divided, who are trying to have us at each other's throats at Christmas time. That's where your anger should be focused. All right, watch.
Was this self-defense, and how do the rules of international waters play into whether this was a war crime?
Yeah, in my opinion, no. This is not self-defense. And no matter where you do the strike, if it's not self-defense, then it's illegal. And look, I have a lot of sympathy for the general idea that when we send our service members out into combat, they got some very difficult decisions to make. When you look at what was going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you're stopping someone, do they have a gun? Do they have a suicide vest? Are they a threat? When you're in the middle of an insurgency with roadside bombs and car bombs and all of that, even in the aftermath of the Afghanistan pullout, when we had that suicide bomber kill 13 service members and hundreds of people in Kabul, and we did that strike against a car that we thought was a threat that turned out not to be a threat, I have some sympathy for that. But people on a boat in the middle of the Caribbean carrying...
Let me just quickly translate. All the stuff that happened that killed innocent people when a Democrat was the president, I have sympathy for that. And listen, Congressman Smith is a Green Beret. He's seen some stuff. That's great. He's never been in an operation like this. I'm sorry, he hasn't. He's been in different kinds of operations. He's using the rules of engagement in the last war, the war that he engaged in, the one that he thinks was the good one. And he's now applying it to dealing with narco-terrorists who have already been led into this country by the last president. He had not a damn thing to say about it, who have murdered Americans, who continue to bring drugs into this country, poisoning our children. And the administrations before have done nothing about it. If anything, they've empowered the governments who have allowed this to happen. You realize that the Biden administration sent passenger planes to Venezuela, filled them with these gang members, and then flew them into America to let them loose into American cities. And now, since Trump sent them back or sent them to the prison in El Salvador, and now they're not getting carte blanche here, now they're trying to get here in boats. And so our military is doing something about this finally. And Adam Smith, respect his record as a Green Beret and the war that he fought decades ago, is now saying he is exactly the politician that he would have hated when he was in country with boots on the ground in the desert in Afghanistan, when he served his country loyally. Because now he's sitting in a cushy air-conditioned office in Washington, D.C., saying, oh, yeah, you can't do that. That's illegal. That's wrong. Absolutely. You know what, Congressman? You're a congressman. You think it's illegal? Do something about it. Don't go on MS Now and start screaming about it. And don't undermine the chain of command by suggesting that the military should take matters into their own hand or disobey orders. You're a congressman. So do something about it. Propose legislation. Call for a hearing. Use your bully pulpit. But instead, he's exactly what people in the military hate about Washington, D.C. And I guarantee you, when he was in uniform, carrying a firearm and protecting this country and fighting for freedom, he would bitch about people just like him today.
Cocaine are not a direct threat to the lives of our service members or Americans.
Yeah, sure. A boat carrying cocaine, which, by the way, again, narco-terrorists. This group has been determined to be a terrorist group by the commander-in-chief. That's completely legal. The State Department has also determined it through the Secretary of State, completely legal. There's no question about it. They have the power to determine who is a terrorist group and who isn't. If this was a boat full of Al-Qaeda, and we knew that they were Al-Qaeda, and they were powering their way to America, and they had a boat full of weapons, would the congressman say it was okay to blast them out of the water? Of course he would. Okay, so that was his war. That was 20 years ago. Now there's this war. And American children are getting murdered. Innocents are dying. And I'm sorry that he can't wrap his brain around that. But then you take one step further. Forget about saying, oh, we really shouldn't kill the narco-terrorists. No. How about actually defending the narco-terrorists?
You know, one of the factors that drives youth in the United States is demand. And most narco traffickers are not in those boats. They pay people to do that. And usually people who are not significantly involved with narco trading, it's the way they make money.
Yeah, this is the big narrative I keep hearing. Oh, you know, the people who are riding the boats, those are just the little soldiers. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just desperate. In fact, they're probably Maryland men who are just trying to earn some money to take their special needs child to elementary school. So we shouldn't be doing anything to them. Don't you have any sympathy for them? They're just trying to earn an honest buck. And really, ultimately, it's our fault because we have demand for these drugs in this country. So really, this is because America sucks. Have you noticed the letter next to everybody's name here who's engaging in this crap? It's a D. Take note, please. Please take note of that. Meanwhile, I don't even want to, but you should see The View. They had to chime in.
I feel like I'm in A Few Good Men. Who ordered the code red? Did you order the code red? Pete Hegseth clearly ordered the code red here. Yeah. That would be a war crime. And it's very clear if you do follow an unlawful order and you're in the military, you can be court-martialed and you can be prosecuted and you can be put in jail.
There you go. So there's Sonny Hostin, great, expert on the Uniform Code of Military Justice, reaching the determination based on the Few Good Men standard that this is a war crime, and not only is Hegseth guilty, but anyone in the military in the chain of command is guilty for following those orders. She has no idea that before these missions are executed, there is a judge advocate general in the room giving their legal advisement on what they can and can't do during the military strike. Fine. It doesn't matter. The facts don't matter. Logic doesn't matter. What matters to these people, whether it's Senator Sonny Hostin from the great state of The View, or Senator Mark Warner, and everybody in between. Logic, facts, law, Constitution, none of it matters. They have reached a new depth in undermining our Constitution, the chain of command, our military, the Pentagon, the Secretary of War, the President of the United States, and every single officer and enlisted men through the ranks. They are trying to undermine everything about the structure of our military because they hate Trump that much. And ultimately, it's because they hate you so much for voting for him. Because make no mistake, this is not about going after Trump. It's about going after the people's choice to be president. So what does the president have to say about it? What does Secretary Hegseth have to say about it? Yesterday, this, of course, came up during the cabinet meeting.
I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves. And allowed them to come across the border, cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations. And it's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs, we're striking the boats, we're defeating narco terrorists, and we're standing.
And you may say one thing, that drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%.
I'm not sure either, sir.
But down 91% by sea.
We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now, which is the entire point, right? Deterrence has to matter, not arrest and hand over and then do it again, the rinse and repeat approach of previous administrations. This is meant to get after that approach.
That's right. That's the whole point. And the fact is that it is bearing results. You heard that 91% right now reduction in the amount of drugs coming to this country over sea. There's still work to be done, clearly. But it's funny. The more boats you blow out of the water and send to the bottom of the ocean, the more, it's not the narco terrorists who are doing it. They have soldiers to do this. It's funny because they're not stupid. And it's fine. It comes harder and harder to find somebody to take a boat from Venezuela and get to Florida or wherever they're headed full of drugs when they know that, Pedro and Carlos, who just took the last boat, they never came back. But you see, they don't want to know. The Democrats in this country and the media, they don't want to know about what works and what actually keeps America safe. That's not a priority for them. The priority is stopping this man. The priority is undermining your vote.
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded in fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President Trump has empowered commanders to do what is necessary, which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people. We support them, and we will stop the poisoning of the American people.
Hot damn, brother. Now, let me just say, I can't believe I've already gone 30 minutes in our first segment, over 30 minutes. I promise I'll tighten up the next two segments. They've been telling us that Pete Hegseth is going to go, that his days are numbered. He's on his way out. They told us Pete Hegseth wouldn't even make it to a confirmation hearing. They told us a year ago. If you go back, watch our program from a year ago. It's right here on this channel where you're watching us right now. They were saying that he wouldn't even make it till Christmas because of all of these things. He doesn't have the support in the Senate. He doesn't have the support from the intelligentsia and the experts and from the military. Nobody likes him. He won't be the Secretary of Defense. Then they told us he wouldn't even make it to a committee hearing. And then he met all the senators and he got to the committee hearing and he got the vote and he got out of committee. It doesn't matter. He's not going to make it past the floor. Mitch McConnell will vote no, and Susan Collins will vote no, and all the usual suspects will vote no. But then he got the vote, and then he was Secretary of Defense, and then Signalgate happened. That's it. Hegseth is gone. There's no way he'll last. Hegseth is still here. Look at that picture. Look at those two men. He is the Secretary of Defense. Do you know how you get rid of the Secretary of Defense?
War.
Excuse me. Thank you. Secretary of War. Appreciate it, Kevin. They want to get rid of the Secretary of War. They want him gone. You know how to do that? There's only one way. Now that he's in office, there's only one way to do it. The man whose side he is sitting beside right now, the commander-in-chief, it's his decision. And you just saw the two of them interacting at this cabinet meeting yesterday. As long as Donald Trump is satisfied and pleased with the job that Pete Hegseth is doing, Pete Hegseth goes nowhere. And the more people try to stab him in the back, the more people who undermine him, the more people who are coming out screaming their heads off about how Hegseth is incompetent and Hegseth has to go. You think that makes a difference to Donald Trump? Do you think Donald Trump is going to, well, yeah, it's getting too hot here, Pete. I mean, there are too many people who are criticizing. You really think that's how Trump operates? Why are so many people against Hegseth? Well, to put it kindly, it's because Pete Hegseth doesn't operate like prior secretaries of defense. He's very different. He has a different approach. That's also the exact reason why Trump loves him and why he's not going anywhere. Dang. That ended up being a very long segment, but I was a little energized about it. I hope that's okay. Get your Larry mug. All right, we're going to get into the fight over the Ilhan Omar and Donald Trump and Somalia refugees in just a second. First, though, have you heard about this new movie? It's called Call Sign Courage. It's a story of Space Force Commander Matt Lohmeyer. Let me tell you about Matt. He's the one who blew the lid off the military's DEI agenda. He saw how Marxist ideology, critical race theory, and DEI training was changing the culture of the military. He was the canary in the coal mine. Suddenly, he saw that everyone was separated in the military into identity groups. They stripped away merit-based selection and promotions. The lack of accountability, competency, unified purpose, it developed into a domestic threat. And so he spoke up. He talked about how it was tearing apart the military's unity, readiness, and the whole reason why we have a military in the first place, lethality, the ability to fight and win wars. His home was broken into. He was spied on, threatened, but Lohmeyer did not back down. So career officers under Joe Biden and Lloyd Austin, they kicked him out of the military. Then something amazing happened. President Trump won the election and made him Undersecretary of Air Force so he could solve the problem. When the stakes were high, this guy stood up. It's a great story. It's a great documentary. Call Sign Courage, the Matt Lohmeyer story. Watch it and buy the DVD. It's salemnow.com. That's salemnow.com. Yesterday, during the president's cabinet meeting, the subject of the corruption and destructive behavior of the Somali refugees in the state of Minnesota under Tim Walz came up for discussion. And, well, President Trump, as he often does, did not mince words.
And they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country is no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. I can say it about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much, everybody.
That's a bit of a mic drop moment. I think it's fair to say that President Trump speaks for tens, if not hundreds of millions of Americans when we see the kind of corruption and criminal behavior from certain communities who are here because of our kindness, because of our generosity, because of our Christian spirit. And we open up our doors and we let them here and we give them all of the tools that our forefathers had when they were brought here through the generosity of America. And they were given the tools to be able to succeed on their own. And then you hear complaints and you hear criticism of this country. You hear people like Ilhan Omar suggest that this country is in some way so flawed that it needs to be remade in the image of Somalia. Well, what's the point of being here then? What the hell are you doing here? You know, everyone says we're a nation of immigrants. That's true. I am the child, the great-grandchild of immigrants. And guess what? My ancestors that came here 3-4 generations ago, they were called some pretty crappy stuff by the Americans that were already here. And they probably didn't like it, but they also were grateful for being here. And they utilized the great things that this country had. And let me tell you something, they weren't anything like the welfare state that has been set up to prop up the people who have come here now. Believe me, back in the 20s and the 30s in this country, the teens, the turn of the century, no safety net. There was no Social Security. There was no food stamps. There was no Medicare. But they took the opportunity, and it was hard, and they worked their asses off. And now here's their great-grandchild, 90 years later, 100 years later, screaming about the Democrats on YouTube. So, yeah, we are a nation of immigrants. How about these immigrants that are here right now act like the immigrants that we're a nation of? So you may not like the word, and I know a lot of people, it's like, oh, I understand what Trump is saying, but I just wish he didn't say things. Well, this is Donald Trump. He's been in our lives for over a decade now in politics and even longer in entertainment. So stop whining and complaining. You're not going to change who he is. You may not like the words that he just used, but cut through all of that and get to the crux of the issue. Oh, he just said that all Somalis, he didn't really say that. But you're right. I guess he should have said, well, most of the Somalis or a whole lot of the Somalis or the bad Somalis or what have you. That's fine. But here's the thing. If I were a Somali in this country and I didn't fit into what Donald Trump just said in describing me personally, I would make it known. I wouldn't be mad at Trump. I would say, hey, President Trump, I understand exactly why you say that because I live in this community and I see the bad people here. But I want to tell you there's some of us that are pretty good. And let me show you how we want to be here. Let me show you the good side of our community. But they're not going to do that. No, they're going to have their leader come out there. Ilhan Omar. Video from Laura Loomer's team. Take a look.
Congresswoman, do you agree with President Trump's assumption that you married your brother to get citizenship? Have you begun packing your bags for Somalia yet, Congresswoman Omar?
Not going anywhere.
So you're not?
No, don't waste your energy on me.
Do you have a message for President Trump?
I will be here probably longer than Trump.
Wait, do you have a message for President Trump?
I am like a quarter of his age.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say to him?
Some old man losing his mind. I don't know why he's obsessed with me.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Congresswoman.
Yeah, I hope he gets help.
Thank you.
Say what you will about Laura Loomer's team, but they know what to say to get the money quote. So there you go. Ilhan Omar is going to be here longer than Trump. Now, after she got some makeup on and got some talking points crafted with her comms team, she went on MS Now and extrapolated on the point this morning.
He's always been a racist, a bigot, a xenophobic, and Islamophobic. We know that he called African nations a shithole in his first administration. We know that when he came down that escalator, he said he was going to stop Muslim immigration into this country. And so it is not surprising that he is going after black immigrants in this country. And it's certainly not surprising that he's choosing a black immigrant community that is also Muslim. But what I would like to say is that most of us are citizens. On our passport, it says we are nationals of this country. We love that Minnesota has welcomed us. Many of us have not been settled in Minnesota. We chose it as a home because the Minnesota people and the state is beautiful and very welcoming, and we are going to be here regardless of what the president has to say.
Yeah, the state of Minnesota is super welcoming. They just threw billions of dollars at us. Well, I mean, we had to lie on state forums claiming that we had children with special needs and starving and needed a government assistance during COVID, but boy, the money really flowed. Gotta love that about this country. By the way, you saw President Trump's statement. Did he say anything about black people or brown people or Muslim people? I'm sorry, guys. We're done. It's over. In fact, Trump should just resign, and all of us should just give up, and we should just renounce our party affiliation, because I don't know if you caught this or not, but Ilhan Omar, speaking on behalf of the Democrats on the media, on cable news, just openly called Donald Trump a racist and a xenophobe, and I don't think he can recover from that. That is the most damaging. I mean, how do we recover from this? Why didn't they think of doing that 10 years ago? My gosh. I mean, I remember when I was part of the Tea Party movement about 15, 16, 17 years ago. And if they had called us racist, boy, that would have stopped our movement right there. In fact, I remember supporting Ronald Reagan when I was a little kid. And if they had called him racist back then, the whole Reagan revolution would have stopped. Oh, wait a minute. I'm so sorry. I just remembered. They have called us racist all along the way. It's all they've got. It means nothing anymore. Why do they even try? Oh, and did you catch this one part? There's a moment here where I thought for a second Ilhan Omar was going to do something quite glorious and talk about how much she loved America and how much she loved the fact that she is a refugee and the hundreds of thousands of Somalis she lives with who were in their shithole country of Somalia, war-torn, ravaged with, a civil war and machete-wielding savages slaughtering children in the refugee camps. I thought she was going to say how grateful she was and how much she loved America. She was so close. Did you catch it? I was holding my breath. I thought she was just about to throw that bone out there. Watch.
Muslim, but what I would like to say is that most of us are citizens. On our passport, it says we are nationals of this country. We love that Minnesota has welcomed us.
Oh, there it was. It was so close. We're all American nationals. It says so on our passport, and we love that Minnesota has welcomed us and allowed us to steal tax dollars from Minnesotans and federal tax dollars from everybody in North Dakota and Oklahoma and Mississippi and really all 50 states. We love that. Yeah.
Isn't it just like a little bit unusual that this nation in the desert in Africa has sent all their people to one of the coldest, snowiest places in the United States?
Yeah, I've always thought that is very weird. And she claims that they all chose Minneapolis because they wanted to be there and how beautiful it was. I don't think that's the case. If I remember right, there was some initiative from the federal government at the time, but mostly I think under Clinton, if I remember right, that had to find a place for them. And they worked with the Minnesota government. They didn't know they were going to some snowbound place. But yes, I've always found it strange that everyone from the desert in eastern, the Horn of Africa, have ended up in Minneapolis. And to make it even worse, they got no choice but to be Vikings fans. Oof, that is a hardship. All right, J.D. Vance at the cabinet meeting took up the issue of mass immigration and how the rampant illegal immigration over the last 4 years under Joe Biden, but really extending back into the Obama administration, has contributed to what the Democrats love to talk about now. We've got an affordability crisis. Well, it's a funny thing when you let 20 million people into this country illegally and they become a drain on our society and a drain on our federal budget and our state budgets and our school budgets. And suddenly you've got to, print out money that the federal government doesn't have to pay for food and clothing and housing for these people, that suddenly prices go up across the board. You want to know why affordability is a problem? Well, J.D. Vance tells you.
Very clearly is that we are fixing the problem that Joe Biden and the Democrats created in the last administration. If you look at every affordability crisis that's confronting the American people today, it is traceable directly to a problem caused by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Why did homes get so unaffordable? Because we had 20 million illegal aliens in this country taking homes that ought by right go to American citizens. Why did tax bills get so unaffordable? Because Democrats were raising taxes while congressional Republicans under the president's leadership we're now cutting taxes. Why did food get so expensive? Because we printed trillions of dollars and threw it into green scams that made our agricultural economy suffer while Americans were paying higher prices for food.
Well said. And all of that is fact check accurate. Thank you very much, Vice President Vance. That said, Ilhan Omar did raise the question of racism, and I sort of mocked it and dismissed it. But I want to say she's not wrong. There are racists as part of this conversation, as part of this debate about immigration and about the deportation of illegal immigrants in this country. And I'll be happy to let you know that we found one of those racists Here she is. Her name is Crystal Ball. She's a liberal. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Something else you said you'd had it with are minorities in ICE.
I mean, that connects to this, right?
Yeah.
Like, not only do you have no moral compass, and how many times have you seen these guys? They've got their masks on, so you can't see their whole face. But what you can see, it's like a brown skin tone and a dude who looks like his last name is probably like Lopez or Hernandez or something. It's like, what is wrong with you? Not only do you not have morality, apparently you don't have self-preservation. I mean, these people hate you. They hate you. They hate your family. They hate your kids. They hate your future grandkids. They don't think you belong here. You're not a quote unquote heritage American. You're never going to belong. And you're the one implementing the violent force against your own community. I just can't wrap my head around that.
Liberal white women lecturing brown-skinned law enforcement whose names are probably Lopez or Hernandez about how ignorant they are for wanting law and order. That's the recipe for a great podcast right there. And frankly, is a great defining moment of everything that's wrong with the American political discourse circa 2025. Also, one other thing, not to be gratuitously mean, but you see the woman on the left there, and then her on-air partner on the right, or on the left there. These are the two podcast hosts there. That one on the left, and then that one with the black glasses. You see them there? You know the warning that you hear on all the ads for Cialis and Viagra that if for some reason you have an erection that lasts more than 4 hours, you should seek a doctor? I've got a better solution for you. If that happens to you after taking one of those drugs, just turn on this podcast and take a look at those two, and it'll solve the problem. I guarantee it. Okay, that was probably gratuitous mean, but it was kind of funny, wasn't it? All right, we're going to get into the latest on the Somali corruption in just a moment. But first, there's a lot of politicians that should be getting coal in their stocking for Christmas. We talk about them here. I think we mentioned quite a few of them earlier in the program. Birch Gold thinks that as a smart planner, you deserve something else. You deserve silver. That's why for every $5,000 you purchase between now and December 22nd, Birch Gold's going to send you an ounce of silver. Silver, which, by the way, is up 60% this year. Smart people diversify, and they have a hedge. With the rate cuts from the Fed coming up in 2026, the dollar is going to be worth less. And what happens if the AI bubble bursts that we keep hearing about? Diversify. Diversify, people. Let Birch Gold Group help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And for every $5,000 you buy, you'll get an ounce of silver for your stocking or for your kid's stocking. What a great way to teach them about saving smartly. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Claim your eligibility for this offer. Again, text Larry to 989898 today, because Birch Gold's free silver with qualifying purchase promotion ends on December 22nd. That's coming up. Text Larry to 989898. Do that today. All right, you've seen more and more coverage about this scandal coming out of Minneapolis, out of Minnesota, out of the Somali community, but also out of the Democrat Party. Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, the whole team over there. They all looked the other way, or in some allegations are true, they were even encouraging and participating in billions of dollars of fraud. One of the biggest government-funded tax fraud stories in the history of America, all centered around the Somali community. Well, the Democrats are circling the wagons, not around law and order, not around taxpayers, but around the Somali community. Here is the mayor of Minneapolis.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Fry. I'm the mayor of Minneapolis, and we are here to respond to a number of credible reports from several media outlets relaying that there are as many as 100 federal agents that will be deployed to the Twin Cities with a specific focus on targeting our Somali community. To our Somali community, we love you and we stand with you. That commitment is rock solid. Minneapolis is proud to be home to the largest Somali community in the entire country. They've been here for decades, in many instances. They're entrepreneurs and fathers. They benefit both the culture and the economic resilience of our city. Targeting Somali people means that due process will be violated. Mistakes will be made. And let's be clear, it means that American citizens will be detained for no other reason than the fact that they look like they are Somali.
Okay, so let me cut through a lot of that garbage. Do you know what an actual leader in America would in the old days, and by the old days I mean what, like 8-9 years ago? Maybe pre-Obama is more accurate. Do you know what an American leader faced with this situation, as Mayor Fry is faced with right now, would have said back then? Faced with this, again, let's just understand something. You've got growing violence in this community of refugees, and yes, some of them have been granted citizenship. Understandable, absolutely. That some of them have not. Many of them have come here legally as refugees seeking asylum. Many have not. Many of them participated in a fraudulent scheme to bilk the state of Minnesota and the American taxpayer from billions of dollars of funds that were supposed to go to children with special needs. And a lot of that money, it appears, went to some terror groups back in Somalia. And some of the people in the Somalian community did not participate in that fraud. Do you know what a leader would do in this situation? A mayor of a city, learning that the FBI and other federal law enforcement officers are going to be coming in and investigating these crimes and determining whether some of the people in this community should or should not be there because they're in the country illegally and they're violating our laws. A leader would step up and say, we fully welcome federal law enforcement to come here. If there's any criminal activity going on, we want to be a part of the solution because we love our Somali community so much that we don't want them living among criminals. Isn't that sort of the normal, reasonable thing to say? Instead, this beta is like on the brink of tears because criminal activity is about to be investigated. He is outraged because criminal activity is about to be investigated. And he's already projecting that, if an innocent American citizen of Somali descent is detained, that's a violation of their... No, it's not. Anybody can be detained. If you get pulled over by a cop, you're being detained. Is that unconstitutional? Even if he doesn't give you a ticket, are you allowed to say, why did you detain me? American citizens are detained all the time, especially if they're suspected of committing a crime. And if it turns out they didn't commit a crime, they are released. He doesn't want anyone detained. You're not allowed to stop anybody. You can't even question them. Even if you have reasonable suspicion that they may have committed a crime, you can't do that. No, actually, you can do that. In fact, that's what law enforcement does all the time. How would he know that, though? He's in Minneapolis. There's something else going on here. This guy just barely won re-election as mayor of Minneapolis, and his opponent was a radical Marxist Somali. They called him the Somalian Zoran Mamdani. And he won the election. But he won the election because he pandered to intertribal disputes within the Somali community. And so he needs to pander because he knows where his political bread is buttered. And so he did this.
That's not American. That's not what we are about. And we're going to do right by every single person in our cities. And so to our Somali community, Daman Shabka, Somalied Kunul, Minnesota, Garahan, Minneapolis, Waan Ku Janilahai, Waan Ku Gereb Taganahan.
I mean, have you ever seen anything more pathetic than that? And again, this is not a commentary on the Somali people or their lovely language. This is the whitest man in America. He's actually speaking Somali with a Minnesotan accent, don't you know? The despicable, disgusting pandering. And I love it. the exact next breath, he'll say, these Somalis are just as American as any other American kid. But I'm going to have to speak their language, otherwise they won't understand me. Okay. I love the fact that right before he did this,
Somaliad Kunul, Minnesota, Garahan, Minneapolis.
Just seconds before he said that, he started with this.
That's not American.
Yeah, no, he knows what American is. He knows full well what American is. Okay, and then a member of the community, of course, was asked to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamal Osman. I am the council member of Ward 6, someone who represents the largest East African community in Minneapolis. I am proud to say I'm a Somali American. This country welcomed me and my family 26 years ago. It has provided me a life that I did not have in Somalia. We came here and we are thankful to be here. I've been educated here, got the opportunity to serve my community, to be a council member. I know many families are fearful tonight. They are. But I want you to know that City of Minneapolis stand behind you as the leaders, both mayors and the chief and everyone that stand behind you are here to stand with you. Our community has lived through fear in the past. And we're not going to let us divide that. We're going to stay informed, we're going to stay safe, and we're going to support each other.
You know, again, maybe I'm old-fashioned, and maybe I can't relate, and maybe it's just my inherent racism speaking here, although it really has nothing to do with the color of anybody's skin. But whatever ethnic group or identity group or gender group or whatever group you belong to or I belong to or this person belongs to, if there is a bona fide report of rampant criminal activity within that group and you're a spokesperson or leader for that group, what is wrong with stepping forward just like this young man is doing? And instead of playing the victim, what is wrong with stepping forward and saying, listen, and I appreciate the fact that he expressed that he was thankful for America giving him the opportunity to live a better life than he would have in Somalia. You didn't hear that from Ilhan Omar. You rarely hear that. So I appreciate the fact that he stepped up and said that. So when he then says, you know, to my fellow Somalis in this community, let me just say this. If you have not broken the law, you have nothing to fear. Why didn't he say that? And why didn't he say to the federal authorities, to the FBI, and to law enforcement, you can count on me for full cooperation. I want to help you find the criminals because they make us all look bad. And by the way, they're preying on my community. So count me in, deputize me, tell me how I can help, because the last thing I want is for anyone to think that I'm up here running interference for criminals in my community. But see, that is what he's doing, isn't it? Oh, it gets worse.
We'll continue to working our partners on the ground so residents know their rights. They know where to turn for help. And we know that Minneapolis will not abandon. One of the things I do want to say, and obviously everyone knows that our president is racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and we are going to fight that. America has a history of fighting and stopping those kind of individuals who continue to divide people and divide communities. Many Somalis that live in this community are working at your groceries, working at your hospitals, delivering your babies, they're doctors. They are very successful individuals. Now I would like to switch into Somali to speak to my community. Assalamu alaikum. walaalayaal waxaan la hadlayaa community.
Again, I know I'm going to come across as xenophobic. I know that I'm going to come across as just, such a hater, but he just said he's been here 26 years. He speaks English great. Why don't the other members of his community speak the language great? Why does he have to switch to the native language? Yeah, I talked earlier about my ancestors who came here from other countries. Many of them came from non-English speaking countries. They learned the language within years. You're not doing yourself any favors, pal, or earning any sympathy by saying, how dare you do this to us? We're just as American as you. And then you jump to your native language. All right. But it gets worse. It actually gets very worse, because then the police chief in Minneapolis had something to say to the officers on the ground. The ones who are put in harm's way to enforce the law in Minneapolis. Yeah. The ones that the Jacob Frys of the world wanted to defund after the George Floyd incident. Yeah. You'd think that this guy had enough problems on his hand to deal with the crime in Minneapolis. But no. Now he's giving orders to his cops to interfere with federal law enforcement.
Folks that are masked, that they're not sure if they're law enforcement, that they may be kidnapping people. Like, we have had those reports. I want to be clear to the community. The community should know.
I gotta jump in here. They keep saying this. This guy is the police chief in Minneapolis. It's not like he's some stupid paid-for Democrat pundit on CNN that just spouts this off without having to provide any proof. But they keep saying, there are masked people who are driving into neighborhoods and just kidnapping people off the street. There is not one case of that. Not one. The one case they did show us in California was fraud. The woman staged the whole thing to earn money on Give, Send, Go for her family or for something. I don't know how or why. Do you really think that if masked individuals are posing as ICE and kidnapping people, innocent people off the streets, there wouldn't be more reports of that? Now, this guy's the police chief, and he's saying, yeah, we've had reports of masked individuals who aren't really cops, who were just, kidnapping people. Nothing more irresponsible than that. All right, I'm sorry for interrupting. I couldn't let it stand.
Those reports. I want to be clear to the community. The community should know that if you see something like that is legitimate, that you don't know if someone is law enforcement, you should call 911. And you should provide as much information as possible, because let's not forget, we very recently had tragedy in this state by someone who was purporting to be law enforcement. So please, let's be clear. That's something everyone should report, and that we will immediately respond to, and we will document, whether it's somebody's not sure if there's a kidnapping happening, somebody's not sure if that there's law enforcement present or not. And that's something else, that's additional policy requirements that we are implementing, that we will document and report these types of things anytime that we hear it, and reminding our officers of their duty to intervene. So if there is anything that is, a violation of someone's human rights or civil rights, excessive force or anything like that, they absolutely have a duty to intervene as police officers.
Oh, well, this is going to be great. So now, as ICE and federal law enforcement come into Minneapolis and they start following leads and apprehending criminal illegal immigrants from foreign nations who are set for deportation, you're going to have 911 lines flooded with people calling to report law enforcement's lawful actions as a crime. So when an actual crime or an actual emergency is taking place, those calls won't get through to 911. Because Mr. Police Chief, I've got 4 stars on my lapel, just told everybody, yeah, if you see ICE in your neighborhood and it freaks you out, call 911. Because I'm sure Minneapolis has the resources to handle that. And secondly, he just told his cops that they have a duty to intervene and get in the way of federal law enforcement conducting their lawful duties in Minneapolis. It's going to make the George Floyd incident in that town look like a day at the park. Do you realize what kind of mayhem this guy just called for? What a disgrace to the uniform. Speaking of disgraces, You know, we couldn't get through a segment about the corruption in Minneapolis and Minnesota without hearing from this guy. Let's see if he keeps his jazz hands under control.
When the President of the United States sets up and tweets 150 times after midnight and targets certain people, it's not a coincidence that they're targeting Minnesota. We certainly welcome those investigations. They've been done by all of you, and they've been done here. We certainly want to know that, but it's also the Transportation Secretary who is threatening to withhold our federal dollars. Look, that's who they are. This is who they are. We welcome anybody who wants to help us. We're fixing it. And I said, Minnesotans know us and our team. We led us through COVID. We led us through George Floyd. We brought our economy to one of the best in the country. And we'll tackle this. Other governors have dealt with fraud. I want to make sure I'm the last one that has to deal with it by putting these things in. If they want to help us, I welcome that. I think they do an investigation, find out. But I don't think anybody in here really believes their motive and their timing is about actually doing something about this, much like the legislature. They had every opportunity to do investigations. They had every opportunity to do their oversight. They chose not to. The very legislatures that are required to do an audit have not done their own audit. The very legislator that has Republican legislators accusing other Republican legislators of fraud in the PPP program, the federal program, demonizing an entire population and lying to people about the safety and security of this state, is beneath that. And I will just add, as a teacher and as a parent, the absolutely pathetic usage of a slur, not to me, I don't care what he calls me many things, but don't think that doesn't hurt our children. Don't think it doesn't hurt people who are dealing with this. And this is not normal. It's not both sidesism. We're solving problems. We're making life more affordable. We're talking about bringing people in. And we're getting this. They need to focus on the war crimes that are coming up. They need to focus on making life more affordable. They need to focus on the issues they're dealing with. We just had a state dinner for the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who is directly responsible for the murder of American journalists. That seems to me to be something Republicans should be concerned about, because that is factual, based, and researched and verified. That's a little different than this speculation. But
all right. So there you go. When asked about the corruption and fraud to the tunes of billions of dollars that has taken place on his watch and his Attorney General Keith Ellison's watch, with very legitimate allegations that he and the Democrat Party infrastructure of Minnesota either were complicit, looked the other way, or actually participated in the fraud, his response was, oh, this is really Donald Trump and the Republicans' fault. And he called me a bad name. And, oh, by the way, Khalid Sheikh, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, killed a journalist 10 years ago. That's his answer. But he did keep his jazz hands under control. You know, between the Ozempic, which has clearly taken hold, and the fact that he's now keeping his jazz hands down, I still think he's going to run for president. And I welcome that. By the way, is that a school cafeteria he's in? I think it is. He must have been visiting a public school cafeteria. And I'm sure after this press conference, he's going to go to the boys' rooms and ensure that there are enough tampon machines in there, because this is Tim Walz's Minnesota. So what's the truth behind all of the fraud and all of the corruption and all of the crime and the allegations that there is rampant illegal activity amongst the Somalian refugee community? Because understand something. Yes, there was an influx of Somali refugees that came 25, 26, 27 years ago under President Clinton, when the country was a basket case and war-torn. By the way, Somalia is, relatively stable now. I mean, relative to Somalia and East Africa, but they're still here. You see, they were given refugee status and asylum. Asylum is not supposed to be permanent, but they were given citizenship under Barack Obama, and they're never going back because, well, that's the plan, of course. That said, what about all these new Somalis? Why are there Somalis here that don't speak English? Why are there new influxes? Well, because here's what happens. The Somalis came here seeking asylum, refugees from war-torn Somalia, horrible conditions. They come here, and then 10 years later, they're granted citizenship by the Obama administration. They take up roots. They elect a congresswoman. They get city council members. They become part of the community, and they start bringing in more family members and more family members and more family members. And so it's a constant flow. And so when you give the asylum and give refugee status and then give citizenship, it doesn't end. It continues and it grows and it builds and it builds. And here's the other thing that happens. If they don't bring their family members legally, Their family members come to visit. They fly in. Oh, hey, we just thought we'd check it out. You tell us about the snow here in Minnesota. We thought we'd see it. Of course, they're speaking in their local Somalian dialect, which I have not mastered yet, but Lord knows it'll probably be mandated soon enough. But they say, yeah, we wanted to check out Minnesota. Oh, it's really neat. Great. We're staying. Oh, you can't stay. We didn't actually get a visa for you. We didn't get you a green card. Oh, we're staying. We're never going back to that hellhole. And so they stay illegally. How many of them stay illegally? Well, yesterday at the cabinet meeting, Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, said that she did a little research on the current immigration status of the Somali community in greater Minneapolis.
You told me to look into Minnesota and their fraud on visas and their programs. 50% of them are fraudulent, which means that wacko Governor Walz either is an idiot or he did it on purpose. And I think he's bold, sir. He brought people in there illegally that never should have been in this country, said they were somebody that they're not. They said they were married to somebody who was their brother or somebody else. Fraudulent visa applications, signed up for government programs, took hundreds of billions of dollars from the taxpayers, and we're going to remove them and we're going to get our money back.
50% of the visas. All right. So listen, I understand that when you do a segment like this and you call into question the legality and the status and the patriotism and the gratitude that you would think refugees in a community coming from Somalia living in Minneapolis should have, and you start criticizing them, as I said earlier, you're going to get called racist, right? So if I may, instead of finishing up this segment with my own observations about the corruption and fraud that this community, many of whom are perpetrating on their own fellow Somalis, by the way, as well as the taxpayers of Minnesota, and may I repeat, taxpayers everywhere in this country, because a huge part of the billions of dollars that we've already uncovered in their fraud was federal tax dollars during COVID. Instead of me telling you all that and running the risk of being called racist, because Lord knows I don't want that, how about this guy? American citizen who lives in Minneapolis, who sees it firsthand.
I'm from Minneapolis, and Somalians are just part of the culture here. As far back as I can remember, I've always seen Somalians. And in these past 5 years, the population increased so much. It went from seeing them to them feeling like the majority a lot of places that I go. And also over the past few years, I've noticed that I see a lot of them with new cars. So I'm a handyman, and I worked on a lot of Section 8 housing to make sure they're up to standard. And one thing I've noticed when I go to these Section 8 houses, one, it's usually a Somali family. And what I mean usually, it's 9 times out of 10. And those houses usually have new cars in the front. I mean cars with an S, multiple new cars. And what I mean usually is like 8 out of 10 Somali houses, I've seen that. And I always wondered how someone on Section 8 can afford multiple new cars. I just couldn't put it together. So now finding out about this fraud stuff makes so much sense. And you know who I feel bad for other than me for paying for that shit with my taxes? Is Somalians who came here on the up and up and who didn't break the law. Because as a black man, I know how it feels to be judged because someone else with your same skin color did some stupid shit that you wouldn't approve of. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but one thing I do know is I've been saying for years we need to kick Tim Walz out because he knew about this shit from the beginning.
I could not have said it better myself, and I think we'll let that man's observations be the final word on this today. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. And thanks for all of your comments in the chat or in the comments section here if you're watching us on demand. If you like today's show, please share the entire program on your social media platforms. Or if you liked any one of the individual 3 segments that we did, we're going to break those out a little later in the day. And by I say we, I mean, of course, Kevin, because he does all the work on this show. Thank you, Kevin. And then you can find that link to that segment and you can share it as well on your social media. That does a whole lot to help us, by the way. Everyone says, how can we help the show? Well, first of all, obviously, if I'm endorsing a product or a service or a Kimchi One tablet, give it a try. That is a huge help for our program. But if you don't want to buy anything, that's cool. likes, subscribes, comments, and more than anything, sharing links to our video, sharing it on your Facebook, on your X, on your Rumble, on your Insta, wherever. That's huge. And we appreciate it very much. And it doesn't cost you a damn penny. Thanks for watching today. Let's get to your super chats. Can we? We've only got 9. Don't we have a rule here? Kevin?
You sound entitled.
That's true. Well, you know what? You're right. Jeff DePew. Hey, we got people's names back. What happened there? Was that like a weird thing with the streaming platform we use, or?
No, it's actually not fixed yet.
It's not? Oh, well. Jeff DePew has got his name back, and it's a $2 super chat. Get the swear jar ready. Yeah, there was a little swearing today, but not as bad as yesterday. I had a lot of beeping yesterday. By the way, do we have a consensus on whether they want the beep or whether they want to hear the 4-letter words?
It's a very mixed bag.
All right, good to know. Stumble Boots with the $2 super chat. You're cool, my friend. Thank you for that. Love lasagna. GBF with a £2 super chat. Have you looked into Yifat Yerushalmi? No, I haven't. Although, because you know what? I asked Kevin to write down the name. Can I blame you for this? Can I throw you under the bus? Are you an admiral?
Yeah, I'll be the fall guy on this one.
Yifat. Keep it up there. It's a name that just rolls off the tongue, isn't it? I like Yifat Yerushalmi with a little brown mustard and, believe it or not, some mayo. But it's got to be on rye, not sourdough. All right, I've got an. Oh, she's kind of cute, isn't she? All right, I've got it. GBF, I'll look into it. Rubate 4126. What does that mean? $5. Is that Australian money? Yes, watching from Australia. Just wondering how it's possible for members of Congress who swore an oath on the Constitution to publicly advocate breaking it. Yeah, we wonder that quite a bit ourselves. These oaths, they're just, they're more suggestions than they are oaths. Yeah, good observation. Takes an Aussie to figure that out. Say hi to the Southern Cross for us, by the way. Patty J. Jenkins, pardon me, $5 super chat. Thank you, Larry. Love your show. Have a blessed day. Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you, and I am having a blessed day. I appreciate that, Patty. Church Cafe, $5 super chat. Yeah, let's believe the idiot who had an affair with a Chinese spy and not the guy who was literally boots on the ground. Democrats suck. Thank you. And you can finish every comment with Democrats suck. That's right. Who do you believe? Eric Swalwell or a 40-year veteran of the Navy SEALs? Thank you, iChurch Cafe. That puts it in perspective. $10 super chat from, oh, look at that, the old guard, John Shearer. Thank you for your medical advice. Saves me from going to the ER. Yeah, if you have an erection that lasts more than 4 hours, just look at the I've Had It podcast, and it'll solve the problem immediately. Did I make you laugh out loud with that one, Kevin?
Yeah.
Did that one get you? I bet my new goal now is to make Kevin laugh every day. And it's hard because he's used to me, right? Paul Weymouth, 96. By the way, when you said, yeah, I didn't believe you. That sounded like a, yeah.
Now you got me to laugh.
There it is. Paul Weymouth, 9630, $10 super chat. And look at that lobster claw. Damn, I want to go to Maine right now. Don't we have laws that prevent foreigners from having control of military, paramilitary, and armed police? Example, Mamdani, my Dearborn used his Muslim police against Christian citizens. Dearborn using Muslim. Well, you mean police officers who are Muslim, which, by the way, isn't necessarily mean that they're foreigners if they're Muslim, because an American-born can be Muslim. And technically, so I guess it depends on how you define foreigner. Because Mamdani is a U.S. citizen, although he was not born in this country. But by that token, same with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was a citizen. He was not born in the country. He became governor of California. So I understand the spirit of the comment. But that's all I know about it. Thanks, Paul. But good-looking lobster. Jonel Melo, 5688 with a $4.99 super chat. The left keeps the narrative lens on identity, not actions. This shields from discussions about accountability, keeping individuals in personal fear. Yeah, but it doesn't work anymore, does it? But you're right. That was the playbook. And they got away with it for so long because inherently we Americans were like, oh my gosh, the last thing I want is for you to think that I'm bigoted or angry or intolerant or racist. Oh my gosh, did my opinion make you think that about? Well, then I better rethink my. And then we realized it was a game. It was a trick. It was a ploy. It was a way to get out of accountability. And we don't play that shit anymore. Oh, and Jonelle with another donut and super chat. Glad you're back. Oh, and that was our number 10. Look at that. Jonelle, that's very sweet of you. We're glad to be back too. Although my voice, I think I'm out of practice, man. Got to keep lubricating the instrument, if you know what I mean. Sorry. Too many innuendos in the jokes today. Is that the problem, Kevin? You don't like the tawdry innuendos, do you?
No, I don't like the tawdry innuendos. You know, Larry, you've got this knack about being able to be funny without certain tawdry innuendos. I could not stop laughing yesterday at the Caroline Leavitt MRI results thing, dude.
The health report.
It was so damn funny.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. And you're right. I don't have to work blue, but sometimes it's fun. You know that I do have I have the mind of a 12-year-old, and you know, sometimes 12-year-olds make jokes about erections, and it's just the way I am sometimes. I'm never going to grow up. Beth Walburn with the $10 super chat. The next Dem to send down the river should be Jessica Tarlov. Oh, you know what infuriates me about Jessica Tarlov? Because she drives me nuts watching The Five. And I can't watch sometimes because of it. But I got to tell you, every single person that I know that works at Fox News as on-air personalities, they all say that she's the nicest person. I don't get it. Drives me insane. Janine Pirro has told me that. Joe Concha has told me that. Molly Hemingway has told me that. Katie Pavlich has told me that. Jesse Waters has told me that. They all say the same. I don't get it. I don't believe Gutfeld thinks she's nice, though. I'll have to ask Gutfeld. Gutfeld, everyone says she's nice. Greg, is she nice? She's a bitch. No, I'm sure that he will be magnanimous and kind. All right. What else you got? Anything else?
That's it.
Do we have any unfinished business?
No, sir. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.